My entire family forced me to divorce because the girl they raised as their own fell in love with my husband. 6 years passed before I saw any of them again. I had just finished arranging my small setup at the corner of the city park, a weathered easel and a box of cheap watercolors, when two familiar silhouettes appeared on the path. My brother, my ex-husband, together, as if nothing had changed. Ryan was carrying a little girl with soft waves of dark hair, her shoes dangling as she leaned comfortably against his shoulder. My daughter. 7 years old now. He stopped in front of me, his expression cool, but not quite unreadable. "Since you're back in the country, why didn't you contact us?" he asked, as if the answer was something simple. I tightened my grip on the paintbrush and replied in a flat voice, "You want to buy a painting? $20 each." Before Ryan could respond, Blake stormed in and kicked my easel sideways. Wood scraped across the pavement before collapsing with a sharp clatter that stabbed straight through me. "Drop the act," Blake snapped. "Felicia already forgave you for causing her miscarriage. Now that people are calling her a homewrecker, her whole nomination is at risk. Come back and clear her name. Then you can come home." "Home," I repeated quietly. "That place stopped being my home a long time ago." Ryan shifted Lily on his hip, and his tone grew sharper. "Arya, are you really going to abandon your daughter?" Before I could speak, Lily turned her face away from me, wrinkling her nose with innocent cruelty. "I don't want this, Mommy," she whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. Her hands looked creepy. Her eyes flicked toward the faded scars circling my wrists. Ryan noticed them too. His expression tightened, and he stepped closer, as if he had the right to reach out and touch me. "Enough, Arya. Stop with the theatrics," he said. "You loved kids once." Loved, I thought bitterly. Past tense. Even my own child looked at me like I was a stranger on the street. Blake scoffed and kicked my small change box, sending coins clinking across the mud. "Why are you even talking to her?" he muttered to Ryan. "Just take her with us. If we didn't need her to fix this PR mess for Felicia, who would bother coming to this dump?" His voice carried the same casual arrogance he had learned from years of inherited privilege, the kind that made other people feel small without even trying. I crouched down to retrieve the box, my hands steady even as my heart twisted. I said, "I am not going back." The words triggered Blake like a match to gasoline. "Don't push your luck," he hissed. "What, you hooked up with some guy here and can't bear to leave him?" Ryan's face darkened at that, jealousy flashing through a crack in his control. Before I could step away, his hand shot out and clamped around my wrist. He pulled hard, dragging me toward the path. Pain flared through my arm. The box slipped from my hand and scattered its small pile of saved bills across the dirt. 10 after 10, 50 after 50, money I needed more desperately than they could ever understand. "Ryan, let go," I said, trying to twist free. "I am not going back." He didn't hear me, or pretended not to. Blake stepped across the fallen bills, grinding them deeper into the mud beneath his polished shoe. That was when a soft cry echoed nearby. Meow. An orange blur launched out of the bushes, claws outstretched. My stray cat, the little creature that waited for me every night, clung to Ryan's arm and raked down his skin. Ryan cursed and loosened his grip just enough for me to yank myself free. I turned to run toward the cat, but Blake swung his leg out and kicked the side of my knee. I collapsed with a muffled cry. The cold ground met me hard. The cat flew several feet from the force of Ryan's frantic shake, landing near the curb with a limp roll. "Little one," I choked out, scrambling to my feet, tears falling faster than I could wipe them. But Blake and Ryan seized my arms before I could reach her. They dragged me forward, their grips iron tight. Behind us, my small cat lay in a growing pool of red. The bills I had saved for a burial plot, enough for one final dignity, were mashed into the mud at Blake's feet. And suddenly, it felt exactly like 6 years ago. A nightmare repeating itself, only this time, I understood something clearly. They had never once cared whether I stayed or left. They only cared what I could do for them. The moment Blake and Ryan dragged me into the familiar SUV, I felt that same suffocating pressure from years ago, like hands closing around my throat. Lily was strapped into her car seat, swinging her legs. The instant I sat beside her, her face crumpled, and she burst into loud wails. "Daddy, I don't want to sit next to this ugly stranger. She smells awful." Ryan's brows twitched. He glanced at me in the rearview mirror, then pretended to reprimand her. "Lily, that isn't polite. This is your mother." Lily sniffed dramatically, leaning as far away from me as her seatbelt allowed. Under her breath, but loud enough for the entire car to hear. She muttered, "She's not my mommy. Only Aunt Felicia should be my mommy." Blake let out a quiet sneer. Ryan gripped the steering wheel until the leather creaked.
"She's just not used to you yet."
"It'll take time." I turned my face to the window, watching the city blur past. "It's fine. I was never her mother." "Isn't that what you told me?" The silence that followed was heavy with things none of them wanted to remember. 6 years ago, in this very seat, with Lily still small enough to fit in one hand, Ryan had looked at me with cold practicality. "Arya, do you think you're fit to be a mother like this? She's just a child. Let her call Felicia mommy if she wants. Do you really need to cause a scene?" His words had carved themselves into me, and now they rose like ghosts. The rest of the ride passed in brittle silence. When we reached the house, my steps faltered. The home I once decorated with my own hands was gone. The rose bushes I planted, the swing under the old elm, the wind chimes by the window, all erased without hesitation. The tree itself had been cut down. The world I once lived in had been gutted and rebuilt to exclude me. My face remained expressionless as I followed them inside. Ryan walked me down a hallway I barely recognized and opened a door at the far corner. Dust covered everything. Cobwebs clung to the ceiling. Even the light switch was stiff from disuse. "They turned your old room into Felicia's music room," he said, coughing as dust swirled around his face. "Just bear with this one for now. Once things settle down." "No need." I cut in. "This is fine." It didn't matter. Soon, all rooms would be the same to me, dark and empty. Blake rolled his eyes. "If she wants to stay in this rat hole, let her. She still loves acting pitiful." Ryan didn't defend me. He rarely ever had. "Stay wherever you want." I nodded and closed the door behind me. For a brief second, I caught a flicker of something in Ryan's eyes, something like guilt. It was almost absurd. He was the one who exiled me, the one who said I was unfit to be a mother, the one who handed my life to Felicia on a silver platter. Why guilt now? I lay down on the narrow bed, and the pain that tore through my chest nearly took my breath. My vision turned white at the edges, cold sweat soaking the pillow. A knock pulled me back. I forced myself up and opened the door. Blake stood there, holding a thin blanket between two fingers, as if it offended him. "Who are you trying to fool, looking like a ghost?" he said, staring at my pale face. Then he tossed the blanket at my feet.
"Here.
So you won't get sick and blame Felicia again." He pointed a finger at me. "And don't cause trouble. You know exactly why you're back." I'd heard these threats too many times to count. They barely scraped the surface anymore. "Got it," I replied. I shut the door in his face. The blanket stayed where he threw it. What did a dying woman need warmth for anyway? I woke to someone pounding on my door. "Ms. Arya, are you up yet? Still think you're some high society princess." The hard bed and the pain gnawing at my ribs meant I hadn't slept at all. "I'm up." I opened the door to Mrs. Davis's sharp, familiar stare. Her eyes were the same, cold and accusing. "If you're awake, then go eat. People shouldn't have to wait on you." 6 years hadn't softened her. She had raised Felicia since childhood and had always resented my return to the family, as though I'd stolen a spot reserved only for her favorite. She used to say I should have died in the forest the day I got lost. To her, I was the intruder, the replacement that never fit. I ignored her glare and walked toward the dining room, gripping the wall for balance as a wave of pain rolled through me. Every breath felt like a blade carving my lungs. Inside, Felicia sat between Ryan and Lily, glowing under their attention. Her cheeks were rosy, her hair tucked behind one ear. Ryan was feeding her pieces of sandwich, his smile soft. "Ryan," she said when she noticed me. Her voice trembled with false guilt. "Arya, you're back."
Are you blaming me? I didn't want to marry Ryan then."
I had no choice. If. The scrape of my chair cut through her words. "No," I said. "Didn't you claim you two were true love? Why would I blame you?" Her eyes shimmered instantly. The victim once again. Ryan slammed his utensils on the table. "Arya, if you don't want to eat, then don't." I gave him a cool smile and sat down. The first bite of the sandwich sent a sickly sweetness down my throat. The tomato sauce made my stomach twist violently. I shoved away from the table and rushed to the bathroom, clinging to the sink as dry heaves racked my body. "Arya," Felicia's gentle voice floated behind me. "Are you pregnant?" Of course she'd twist the knife this way. She had always known exactly where to strike. Talent once threatened her, so she severed my tendons. Reputation threatened her, so she accused me of being unfaithful. Someone always believed her lies. Behind her, Ryan's reflection appeared in the mirror. His expression twisted with disgust. Arya, a woman should have some self-respect. I nearly laughed. Self-respect. Was that what he called the night they locked me in that club and left me to the mercy of strangers? It's none of your business, I said, my voice cold as the water splashing onto my face. Ryan scoffed and walked away. Whatever. I returned to the dining room, ignoring the way everyone stared. Felicia tilted her head sweetly. Since you're back, why don't you perform with me at my concert? We were once known as the twin violin stars. Her words froze every muscle in my body. I stared at my hands, wrapped in bandages that were never coming off. These fingers would never glide over strings again. That dream had died long before my body started failing. Before I could answer, Lily spoke, her bright childish voice slicing clean through the silence. Aunt Felicia, that ugly lady isn't good enough to play music with you. I saw her hands, they're so ugly. Her innocence made the words sharper, cleaner, more brutal. And they pierced straight through me. The concert hall buzzed with anticipation 3 days later. I stood backstage in a borrowed black dress that hung loose on my frame, watching Felicia through a gap in the curtains as she basked in the crowd's adoration. You'll stand beside me during the finale, she had instructed earlier, her smile saccharine. You don't need to play. Just hold the violin and smile. Let them see we've reconciled. A prop. That's all I was now. Ryan appeared beside me, adjusting his tie. He'd been watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read since yesterday, when he'd found me collapsed in the hallway, clutching my chest. You should see a doctor, he said quietly. Why do you care?
His jaw tightened.
Lily needs a mother. Lily has Felicia. I turned away from him. Isn't that what you wanted? Before he could respond, Blake strode over, phone pressed to his ear. He ended the call and grabbed my arm roughly. The media's here. Smile. Wave. Play the Grateful Sister. One wrong move and I'll make sure you regret it. I pulled free, meeting his eyes with the kind of calm that only comes from having nothing left to lose. You can't threaten a dead woman, Blake. His face twisted with confusion, but the stage manager was calling Felicia's name, and the moment passed. The performance was flawless. Felicia's violin sang through the hall, every note precise and emotionally manipulative. When she beckoned me onto the stage during her final piece, the audience erupted in surprised applause. I walked out under the lights, feeling their weight like stones. In my hands was the violin I hadn't touched in 6 years, the one they'd given me an hour ago. Felicia leaned close, whispering through her smile. Just stand there. Don't ruin this for me. But as the music swelled, something inside me cracked open. My fingers, scarred and stiff, found the strings, and I began to play. The first notes that emerged were raw and broken, nothing like the technical perfection Felicia produced. But they carried something she could never fake, truth. I played the piece I'd composed in that hospital bed 6 years ago, the one I'd written in my mind during the long months when my hands were bandages and my heart was shattered. Each note was a memory. The day they chose Felicia over me. The moment Ryan signed the divorce papers without looking at my face. Blake's indifference as I begged to see my newborn daughter. The audience fell silent. Even Felicia's violin had stopped. When the last note faded, the hall remained frozen. Then someone in the back began to clap. Then another. The applause built slowly, not the enthusiastic cheering Felicia received, but something deeper. Something that acknowledged pain witnessed. I lowered the violin and walked off stage, without looking back. Backstage, chaos erupted. Felicia stormed after me, her carefully composed mask finally slipping. How dare you, she hissed. That wasn't part of the plan. You were supposed to just stand there. I did what you asked, I replied calmly. I performed with you. Ryan caught up to us, his expression strange. Where did you learn to play like that? That piece. I wrote it. I met his eyes. 6 years ago, when I still foolishly believed any of you might come for me. Blake appeared, phone already ringing with calls from journalists. The media's going crazy. They want to know about Arya Hartwell's comeback. This wasn't supposed to happen. Then tell them the truth, I said, removing the borrowed dress to reveal my paint-stained clothes underneath. Tell them Arya Hartwell died 6 years ago. This is just her ghost. I walked out of the concert hall and didn't look back when they called my name. I returned to the park the next morning. My easel was still there, kicked to the side and forgotten. I spent an hour searching through the bushes near the curb, calling softly for little one, but found only dried blood on the pavement. Something inside me broke all over again. Mommy. I turned to find Lily standing a few feet away, alone. She was clutching a small stuffed cat, twisting its ear nervously. "Where's your father?" I asked, scanning the path. "He's coming. He told me to wait in the car, but—" She took a hesitant step closer. "I wanted to give you this. Mrs. Davis said you were looking for a cat." She held out the stuffed animal. Its orange fur reminded me painfully of little one. I knelt down, ignoring the pain that shot through my chest. "Thank you, Lily. That's very kind." She didn't let go immediately. "Aunt Felicia said you left because you didn't love me." My heart cracked. "That's not true." "Then why did you go away?" Her voice was small, confused. "Why do your hands look like that? Why does everyone say mean things about you?" I looked at my scarred wrists, the permanent reminder of what they'd cost me. "Sometimes, Lily, people hurt you so badly that you have to leave to survive. And sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones who hurt you most. I don't understand. You will someday." I tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "And when you do, I hope you're braver than I was." Ryan's voice cut through the moment. "Lily, get back to the car.
Now."
She scurried away, leaving the stuffed cat in my hands. Ryan approached slowly, his expression conflicted. "You shouldn't put ideas in her head." "Ideas like what?" "That her mother exists." "You gave up that right when you left." I stood, meeting his accusation head-on. "You took that right when you told me I was unfit to raise her. When you let Felicia into my daughter's life before she was even born. When you chose to believe I'd been unfaithful instead of asking who really arranged that night at the club." His face paled. "What are you talking about?" "Ask Felicia," I said quietly. "Ask her who booked the room. Who sent me the address claiming it was your birthday surprise. Who made sure I was alone and vulnerable." "You're lying." "Am I?" I pulled out my phone, the old messages still saved after all these years.
"Here."
Every text, every manipulation. I kept them all, hoping one day someone would finally believe me. Ryan stared at the screen, his face draining of color as he scrolled. His hands began to shake. "This doesn't. Felicia wouldn't." "Wouldn't she?" I took the phone back. "She's been in love with you since we were teenagers, Ryan. She lost her chance when my parents found me. Everything she's done has been to reclaim what she thinks is rightfully hers. Why didn't you show me this before?" I laughed, bitter and broken. "I did. You called me a liar. Blake said I'd fabricated evidence. My own parents chose to believe her tears over my proof. So I stopped trying." For the first time in 6 years, Ryan looked at me like I was human. "Arya, Save it." I turned back to my easel. "I didn't tell you this for an apology. I told you so that when I'm gone, maybe you'll finally see what you destroyed. When you're gone." His voice sharpened with sudden fear. "What does that mean?" But I was already walking away, the stuffed cat clutched to my chest. The hospital waiting room was cold and sterile when I arrived for my appointment 2 days later. The doctor's face was grave as she reviewed my scans. "Miss Hartwell, the cancer has progressed significantly. At this stage, we're looking at weeks, possibly a month if you're fortunate." I nodded, feeling nothing. "I understand. There are treatment options, though given the advancement." "I'm not interested in prolonging this," I interrupted gently. "I just need to know how long I have to settle my affairs."
She sighed.
"I'd recommend hospice care. You shouldn't be alone." I almost laughed. I'd been alone for 6 years surrounded by family. What difference would it make now? When I left the hospital, Ryan was waiting by his car. His eyes were red-rimmed, and he looked like he hadn't slept. "I spoke to the doctor," he said. "Why didn't you tell anyone you were sick?" Would it have mattered? He flinched. "How can you ask that?" "Easily." I moved past him. "You wanted me back to clear Felicia's name, not because you cared whether I lived or died." "That's not." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I confronted Felicia about those messages. She admitted everything. The club, the lies about the miscarriage she never actually had. All of it." I stopped walking. "And I ended our engagement. Blake is furious. Your parents, they still don't believe it. They think I'm being manipulated by you again." "How familiar," I murmured. Ryan stepped closer, his voice desperate. "Come home. Real home. Let me take care of you." Let me make this right. There is no making this right, Ryan. You can't fix 6 years of abandonment with a few weeks of guilt-driven care. Then let me try. For Lily's sake. She asks about you constantly now. She wants to know why you paint in the park, why you live alone, why you look so sad. My resolve wavered, for just a moment. What did you tell her? The truth. That I made a terrible mistake. That I hurt someone I should have protected. His eyes glistened. Arya, please. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But let me at least give you comfort in the time you have left. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw genuine remorse. But remorse couldn't give me back my daughter's childhood. It couldn't restore my hands or my health. It couldn't undo the scars on my wrists or the ones carved into my soul. I'll think about it, I whispered, because even now, some foolish part of me still wanted to believe in second chances. I spent the next week in that dusty room, painting. Not the quick watercolors I sold in the park, but real paintings. Every canvas was a memory, Lily as a newborn, before they took her from me. The rose bushes I'd planted. The home I'd tried to build. The woman I used to be, whole and hopeful. Ryan visited every day, bringing soup I couldn't eat and stories about Lily I'd missed. Blake came once, standing in the doorway with something like regret in his eyes, but pride kept him from speaking. My parents never came at all. It was Felicia who appeared on the 7th day. She stood in my doorway, no longer the fragile victim, but something raw and broken. I never meant for it to go this far. I didn't look up from my canvas. Yes, you did. You meant every bit of it. I loved him first, she said, voice cracking. I was there first. Then they found you, their real daughter, and suddenly I didn't matter anymore. Everything I had was borrowed, temporary. So yes, I took what I thought was mine. And destroyed me in the process. I'm sorry. Tears streamed down her face. I'm so sorry, Arya. I was jealous and cruel, and now you're dying because of the stress I caused. I finally turned to face her. I'm not dying because of you, Felicia. I'm dying because cells in my body decided to multiply wrong. But I am dying alone, unmourned, with a daughter who thinks I'm ugly and creepy because of you. Let me fix it. Let me tell everyone the truth. Now you want to tell the truth. I laughed weakly. Where was this honesty 6 years ago? 3 years ago? Last month? I was scared.
Weak.
Wrong. She sank to her knees. But I'll do it now. I'll hold a press conference. I'll tell them everything. Don't bother. I returned to my painting, each brushstroke taking more energy than I had. I don't want a redemption arc. I just want peace. She left sobbing, but I felt nothing. The next morning, I woke to find Lily sitting beside my bed, watching me with solemn eyes. Daddy said you're sick. Really sick. I reached for her hand, and for the first time, she didn't pull away. Yes, sweetheart. I am. Are you going to die? Children's honesty could be brutal. Yes. I don't want you to die.
Her voice wobbled.
I was mean to you. I said your hands were creepy, and you smelled bad. But I didn't mean it. Aunt Felicia told me to say those things. My heart broke and mended simultaneously. It's okay, Lily. It's not okay. She climbed onto the bed, careful and gentle. Mrs. Davis told me what really happened.
She said she was wrong about you.
Everyone was wrong about you. I held my daughter for the first time in 6 years, breathing in her shampoo scent and memorizing the weight of her in my arms. Will you tell me stories, she asked. About when I was a baby? About before? Yes, I whispered. I'll tell you everything. And I did. For 3 weeks, I painted and told stories and let my daughter know me. Ryan was there too, quiet and supportive, never pushing for forgiveness he knew he didn't deserve. Blake came more often, bringing my favorite books, his apologies awkward but sincere. My parents never came. On my last day, I was lucid enough to gather them all in my room. Lily curled against my side, Ryan holding my scarred hand, Blake standing at the foot of the bed with tears streaming down his face. I forgive you, I told them, and watched the words hit like absolution. Not because you deserve it, but because I don't want to die carrying your guilt too. Ryan's composure broke. Arya, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I know. I squeezed his hand weakly. Take care of our daughter.
Tell her about me.
Show her my paintings. Let her know that her mother loved her every single day, even when I wasn't allowed to show it. I will. I swear I will. I turned to Lily, cupping her tear-streaked face. Be brave, my darling girl. Be braver than I was. Don't let anyone make you small. I won't, Mommy. She pressed her face into my neck. I love you. I'm sorry I said I didn't want you. I know, baby. I know. To Blake. Take care of them. Be better than you were. He nodded, unable to speak. As the sun set through the window, painting the room in amber light, I closed my eyes. My last thought wasn't of pain or regret, but of Lily's small hand in mine, and the peace of finally being seen. When Arya Hartwell died that evening, she died surrounded by the family who had destroyed her, knowing that in the end, they finally understood what they had lost. The ghost had been laid to rest, but the regret would haunt them forever. Epilogue. 5 years later, Lily stood in a gallery, now 12 years old, surrounded by her mother's paintings. Ryan had spent years collecting every piece Arya had created, from the cheap watercolors sold in the park to the final masterpieces painted in that dusty room. The exhibition was called The Ghost of Your Regret, and it told the story of a woman who had been discarded, forgotten, and finally, too late, remembered. Lily had grown into a fierce, talented girl who played violin like her mother once did, but with her own voice. She wore her mother's scarred strength like armor. As visitors moved through the gallery, whispering and crying, Lily stood before her favorite painting, a portrait of herself as a baby, held in loving arms that hadn't yet been broken. I miss you, Mommy, she whispered, but I'm being brave, just like you asked. And somewhere, perhaps, Arya's ghost smiled.